Get comfortable with being wrong. In this life, you are going to be wrong. Being right or being wrong should not be something that is part of your identity. How do you know it's part of your identity? If you cannot fathom being wrong in any situation of your life, you have made being right part of your identity. And now your part of what makes up your identity is something so shaky because you can be wrong tomorrow. You can be right today. It is such a shaky thing to build your identity on, being right or being wrong. In this life, a key to success is learning, getting comfortable with being wrong. Hi, my name is Busi. Last time I spoke about honesty. I spoke about honesty and I spoke about the price of honesty is rejection. Either you will be rejected by yourself by not following the things that you think are worth following, doing the things that you believe are worth doing, all for the sake of being wanting to be pleased by wanting to please other people, right? You will have to choose between either rejecting man's approval of you or you rejecting yourself and approval from yourself. That is the price of honesty. It's rejection from somewhere, from yourself or the next person. Now, today, I want to talk about being wrong and your relationship with being wrong. Because in your quest to living out in things that you believe are truth, doing things that are truthful to you, or whatever the situation is, the truth of the matter, whatever it is, right? On that journey, you're going to be wrong a lot of the times, and you cannot cling on to being right as a comfort, a compass. It's so weird. You can't hold on to I need to be right, right? So let's do this. When you make a decision, ne? Always remember why you're making a decision. If you have a goal, always remember why you set that goal. If your goal is to find freedom, right? On your quest to finding freedom, you're going to fail at it. Because when you're finding freedom, what happens is that you will identify that where I am right now, I don't feel free. And then what do? You're probably going to go on the internet, and as you're looking at life, or probably something on in the outside life triggered you to understand that what I'm living in isn't freedom. You're gonna now look at that person and say, oh, this looks like a picture of what I think freedom is. This person looks free. And you look at that person's lifestyle, and that person probably works in finance. That person has car, house, whatever the situation is. And you basically now say that, oh, that's my mood board for what freedom looks like. You go down that path. As you are going down that path, you start to realize that, whoo, but I don't feel free, it's not there, it's not getting there. And then fine, you still begazela, you continue, and then you finally get to a point where your life looks like the mood board picture that you had already put up to say, oh, this is what freedom looks like. Your life looks like that picture, your life looks like that vision, and you still have not landed at the destination of freedom. If you cling on to being right all the time, you have now reached the destination of misery, because you will now fend for what? You will fight for the sake of, I need to be right, instead of remembering the fight was never to be right, the fight was for freedom. This is why you need to get comfortable with being wrong. Because now, when you see that, oh, my life looks like this mood board picture, however, I don't feel freedom. I thought freedom was here, but it's not here. What you need to do is shake hands with the fact that, sharp, I was wrong. I made a prediction error. That's okay. And then what happens? You go back to the drawing board and say that, okay, freedom didn't look like that. Freedom didn't look like that, or satisfaction was not in that location. What do you do now? You go back to the drawing board and say, okay, I think it's going to be in here. I think it's going to be there, or whatever. Even on the journey of making your way to that picture frame, picture perfect life of freedom that you thought, that's where freedom lies. You're going to pay attention to, how did I feel in this moment in time? Maybe on your way to working in finance, you realize that, oh my gosh, I actually liked the, I don't know, the program. I don't even know if there's programming in finance, but the programming side of things, I don't know. I don't think that's the thing. But the programming side of things, and you realize that, oh, I actually had more fun programming. What do you do? Instead of going now back to square one, you just go, you start doing more research into the programming thing and saying, okay, If that felt good, that felt nice. Now let's see, is there a way for me to pivot into this? Is there no way for me to pivot into it? If you find a way to pivot into it, pivot into it. And then when you get there, you're like, ooh, you get there and you still feel like freedom wasn't necessarily like there. That's not where freedom is. And then you're like, ish, but then there was this time when we are doing a bit of admin and I like the admin side. And then you're like, okay, let me see if there's a loophole for me to get into that admin side. And then you go into that admin side, and then when you go into that admin side you realize that this is where freedom is. You only get to that destination of freedom by, firstly, at that point, when you realize you're living that picture perfect life, that life where you thought freedom lies, you come to terms with the fact that you were wrong. You acknowledge that you were wrong. You now, what do? You don't cling on to the fact that, oh my gosh, but I said it was going to be here, but it's not here. In life, you're going to have to get comfortable with being wrong. You have to get comfortable with starting over again. You have to get comfortable with starting over again. If you cling on to being right all the time, starting over again will be so difficult for you. And I think the only issue with starting over or being right all the time is when you've made it a part of your identity that everything I do is perfect, everything I do is right. I'm not one who makes a mistake. I am not one who does things wrong. And even sometimes then you will find that when you look at your life, Vele, everything you do is right. Everything is correct. You've never made a mistake. But that's simply because you've been too scared to explore because you don't want to make mistakes. Now you've come to a point in life where you're like, hey, but it's not all that, but hey, I'm right. That's all that matters. You hardly ever explore. You don't go do things that are outside of your comfort zone simply because you want to be right all the time. Go do things that are outside of your comfort zone so that you will learn, you'll be wrong, you'll come back, you won't die. Don't allow being right or wrong to define you. Your identity cannot be in you being wrong or you being right. Otherwise, who you are can be broken with the snap of a finger just by you being in a situation where you are wrong. How do you get comfortable with being wrong? Identify your relationship with being wrong. What relationship do you have with being wrong? When you hear the words "you are wrong," how does that make you feel immediately? Where do you feel it mostly? Does it feel like it's an attack on your identity? Does it feel like it is a thing of you've wasted time? And as you're doing this, you need to be like so curious about this. You figure out your relationship with being wrong, and you sit and understand, why can't I be wrong? You get to that. If you cannot be wrong because being wrong is a signal that you have failed, then it's like, okay, what is it about failure that just seems so sinful? Like, I'm not supposed to do this. What is it about that? Oh, because failure feels like it's a part of my identity, you know? Why do you think failure is a part of your identity? All the things and all the things, all right? You get down to the nitty gritty of it so that you can actually correct your relationship with being wrong. So you identify, how do you relate to being wrong? Is it a thing of you don't want to be wrong because, hey, you are trying to preserve yourself? It's a self-preservation thing. It is a image thing. It is an identity thing. It is a comfort thing. I don't know, whatever it is. You get to that, né? When you get to the bottom of that I don't want to be wrong because if I'm wrong, it means I have failed at protecting my image. Sharp. Then you understand, what is it about my image that I value so much that I don't want to be wrong about it. You get to the nitty gritty of why is this thing the way that it is, and then you figure out what the root of that thing is. If it's a image thing, if it's because I don't want to look wrong, I don't want to be wrong, it's tied up to how you look, how people perceive you, how it's tied up to your identity thing. Find the root of that. Why, when in your head did you make the connection that your being right or wrong is a part of your identity and it's not just a part of life like oxygen? Like, hi, it's all of our first times in life. We're going to be wrong. Is it a situation of you think that you can't be wrong because maybe your parents have never admitted to you when they were wrong? You've never seen your parents be wrong. So in your eyes, it's like being wrong is not an option. And why is that? And then you go and see that, okay, if it is a thing that I've never seen my parents be wrong, or my parents have never told me that they were wrong, Is it because they've never told me that because I was maybe too young to understand, like, and also because you have this hero image of your parents, and your parents also don't want to disappoint you, and whatever the situation is. And then you go and you figure out, okay, but is this how I want to live the rest of my life? Is this the relationship that I want to have with being wrong? If being wrong is such an essential part of life, that you're going to live a life where, hey, you're going to be wrong. It's everyone's first time in life. At some point in time, you're gonna be wrong. You're gonna make a decision and realize that, oh my gosh, this was a wrong decision to make. And then what do you need to do? You cannot cling on to pride. You cannot cling on to the fact that I need to be right. You have to come to terms with the fact that, oh, I was wrong. Let me pivot. Let me go another direction. Let me look for another way to go about achieving the sense of freedom and satisfaction with my life. Let me look for something new. That let me look for something new starts with you being wrong. Identify why it is you think that being wrong is such a sin. When you get to that point, ask yourself, is this what I want to keep on living my life on? Is this how I want to like keep on going about my life? Do I want to keep living my life with the voice of an aunt always in my ear? And every time I do something wrong, I just hear that voice. Maybe that's why you don't want to be wrong, because you're trying to protect yourself from hearing the voice of your aunt. So things like that, where you're like, okay, if it's stopping hearing this voice of my aunt, like, why does she have such a stronghold in my life in the first place? And working through that, okay, if my aunt has a strong place in my life because I've always thought that her and I are so similar, then, oh, dude, understand that you can be similar, but Omong Lomong has made their own life choices. Was she projecting or not? If she wasn't projecting, that's her business. If she was projecting, then that's her business. Don't make her business yours. But if it's like, okay, yeah, you value her opinion so much because you see so much of yourself in her, come to understand that as much as you see yourself in her, you're made in not in her image. Her image is not what you were made in. You were made in the image of our God. Yes, the one and Savior. The one and only Savior. But you were not made in her image. And so if you're not made in her image, then it means you don't have to grow up to be like her. You don't necessarily need her approval. You don't need her satisfaction. Ask yourself, when do I get to a point where I'm okay with living um I'm okay with living and not needing to satisfy my aunt who I want to be so much like. That's number one. Assess your relationship with being wrong. Why can you not fathom being wrong? When you get to that root, ask yourself, is this how I want to continue living my life? If not, work on it. Figure out, how do you want to live your life now? If being wrong is like oxygen in this life, how do you get to a point now where you can now breathe this oxygen of, okay, I'm going to be wrong? Number two is figure out, when was the first time you were wrong. Sometimes how we respond to certain situations in life is based on the very first time we were our our first encounter with that concept or whatever the situation is. So if the first time you were ever wrong in your life, you were met with anger, aggression, and disappointment, right? Human beings are self-preserving beings. We like to protect ourselves, we like to preserve ourselves. So now what happens is that because your first memory of being wrong, the first time you ever remember you were wrong, you just were encountered with aggression, disappointment, hurt, all these things. Your brain is going to do what it's designed to do, which is to keep you safe. Yeah. But now you have to understand that, number one, the only reason why you're scared of being wrong is because you didn't want to disappoint this one. You were met with anger, aggression. So from the jump, being wrong was never made to be a safe thing. And now you need to fix that. You need to come to the truth of the matter, which is that you're going to be wrong a handful of times, and you now need to make being wrong safe. If when you are wrong and you were met with aggression and disappointment and that made you not feel safe, this means that now you need to change how you respond to being wrong. You need to change the perception that you had of being wrong, that when you're wrong, you're a disappointment, you are this, and that. You need to now change that voice. Those voices, shut them down. And now you need to meet yourself with the opposite of that. Whatever it is that you think that you needed in that moment when you did something wrong. If when you were wrong, your parents boxed you, you now need to get to a point where you have to now understand that, okay, but how did that make me feel? It made me feel so insignificant. Like, why would you box me for being wrong? It's not like I knew any better. I didn't know any better, and I was boxed for not knowing any better. What do you do now? You have to now meet yourself in a way where, okay, if I find myself in a position again where I don't know any better, how am I going to meet myself in that position? What would I have liked to be done to me at the time, to have been done to me at the time? Would I have wanted help to fix whatever it is? If you broke a vase, would you have wanted help instead of being shouted at? Sharp. Now you start to take that, you take that response. This is number three. How would you have liked to be showed up for in that moment? You take that response and you start doing it for yourself now. Whenever you find yourself in a situation where you are wrong, you think you are wrong, when you first identify your relationship with being wrong, you address that, and then you come to your first memory. It doesn't even have to be your first memory, it can also be the strongest memory. Whatever it is in your head that has made you think that being wrong is a sin, you need to address that point in your life and say, okay, but why? And then you fix that. You speak to that area in your life. Number one, how do you speak to it? You speak to it by, what do you wish was done to you instead of that? Number two, what do you wish was done to you instead of that? And then you start doing that to yourself. So in situations where you find yourself being wrong, if you do something wrong, instead of meeting yourself with aggression and disappointment and whatever, you now treat yourself the way you wish you were treated, in that, okay, you just need help. That's it. If you went the wrong way, chose the wrong thing, you just need help. If there was a certain standard for you that was set, and whenever you were wrong, it's like you didn't meet that standard, then it's like, the problem here is like the standards. Now for your life, there's certain standards that you're going to set for yourself. Sometimes you might even decrease the standard because you don't want to be wrong, or you'll put the standard way above there to overcompensate for the fact that you were wrong when you were 11. So now your standard is high above there, and yeah, you're just basically shining in life because your standards for yourself are here, instead of just, hey, assessing those standards. Where do those standards even come from, and do I want to live my life still based on those standards? If the answer is no, stop it. Stop. And then that's that. And then life is literally about starting again over and over. Every day is a new day, just to show how life, in this life, you can always start again. We're not living in one day. The sun comes, it goes down. The moon comes, it goes back. All of this is just a cycle to show you that in this life, you can start again. Baring, Chinese proverb, ring. The best time to plant a seed was 200 years ago, but the second next best time is now. Aish! Chinese proverb from the Bible: the righteous man may fall 100 times, but the important thing is that he gets back up. That is how you identify that you're righteous, because you don't just stay on the ground, you get back up. Yeah. That's it from me. And being wrong, and how in this life you just need to get comfortable with the fact that you're going to be wrong a handful of times. And with being wrong a handful of times, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Just assess, am I in a position to pivot, and how do I pivot? If your quest, remember your goals from the jump. If your goal was to land at freedom, you live your life in a way where you thought freedom was in the color pink. You get to the color pink, you realize freedom is not there. Be okay with the fact that I was wrong in my prediction, and that's fine. It's not the end of the world. If being wrong is a sin in your eyes, go back to the drawing board and figure out why. Why is your relationship with being wrong so terrible? Who told you that being wrong is such a world ending thing? Who planted that seed in your head? Where did you get that seed in your head that being wrong is so demonized, and it is such a, it's a signal of failure? And why is failure also just such a thing that has been demonized in your mind? Like, question those things, because unfortunately in life you are going to fail, you are going to be wrong. Guarantees of life. You will fail and you will be wrong. If you want to be right, you will fail. If you want to live a life, an honest life, a life that you're gonna die one day and say, wow, I'm proud of the life that I live, part of living that life is that you're gonna come across the fact that you were wrong, and you were wrong multiple times. But the important thing is that you remember that being wrong does not define who you are, and it's okay, you can come back and be right. Remember those questions. Identify your relationship with being wrong. What is your first or your strongest memory of with the concept of being wrong? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Number three, how would you have liked to be met? How were you met in that situation when you were wrong? Did you like it or did you not like it? And number four, how do you wish you were met in a situation when you were wrong? And you now need to start treating yourself how you wish you were treated in moments when you were wrong. What are some things that you don't believe about being wrong? What are some things that you do believe about being wrong? And then get to the truth about being wrong, that it's literally okay. It's not the end of the world. Literally not the end of the world. And then you live life, love. You live life, love. But that is it from me. Until the next time you see my gorgeous face on your screen. Bye.